Good day, I'm Dr. Mindy Patterson, and as a nutrition expert, people always ask me about the gut microbiome. They ask me questions about how does it influence our overall health and how can we influence our gut microbiome to improve our overall health and well-being. Well, today I'd like to highlight a few things about the gut microbiome. First, what is it? Well, it's over 30 trillion microorganisms that live all the way through our GI or gastrointestinal tract, from our mouth all the way to our anus. It includes bacteria, viruses, yeast, and you can see within each area of our GI tract, we have different types of microorganisms. What I'm going to focus on today is the gut microbiome, which is found mostly in our large intestine. However, there is some research going on about trying to identify specific species in the small intestine. It accounts for about 1 to 3% of our total body weight, and it's involved in many different types of metabolic pathways, from breaking down nutrients that we ingest through our diet that facilitates digestion. It allows for the production of certain vitamins and certain metabolites like short-chain fatty acids we'll talk about later, and it's involved in the proper function and maintenance of our immune and nervous system. Many things impact our gut microbiome composition. First, we have mode of delivery. Were you delivered? So we're going back to infancy through cesarean section or through vagina. So whatever mode of delivery, that really is going to impact your initial microbiome composition. And then, of course, you have genetics, you have where you live, drug use, exercise, stress, whether or not you smoke, your circadian rhythm. So when do you sleep, eat, all of those types of things are going to impact your gut microbiome. It changes as we age. So what your gut microbiome looked like when you were an infant is certainly not going to look the same when you're 80 years of age. So it's really important to, as we age, maximize the potential of having a beneficial microbiome makeup. So we want those beneficial microbes outweighing the pathogenic or toxic microbes. And we'll talk about how we can do that, especially through the diet. There are many human disorders that are linked to the gut microbiome, everything from neurological diseases, including MS, anxiety, depression, stress, addiction, liver disease, obesity, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes and prediabetes, insulin resistance, and a lot of the gut microbiome, the pathogenic microbes, are going to be involved in producing an inflammatory response. So that can lead to allergy, eczema, arthritis, some of those autoimmune type of disorders. Here's a study that was published in 2017, and I like this study because it produced a really nice graphic on how a high animal diet versus a low plant diet are really combined. High animal is going to probably be low in plants, which is going to be low in fiber, can change the makeup of the microbiome, and that in turn can lead to metabolites that are potentially toxic to the human host. So you ingest these really high animal protein diets that are rich in L-carnitine, phosphatidylcholine or lecithin, and especially choline. And what it does over time is it allows for these more pathogenic type of bacteria, and they produce a compound, and this is from animal foods, called trimethylamine, which is TMA, and that occurs, so like I said, through the microbes. Then this TMA gets converted into a compound called TMAO in the liver. TMAO is trimethylamine in oxide. This guy is not good. Trimethylamine in oxide leads to many inflammatory processes and can lead to plaque formation. Therefore, we have narrowing of the arteries. This can directly lead to cardiovascular disease risk. Plus, it also increases the aggregation of platelets, which can further increase the risk of chronic diseases. And there was a study, and I really like this study too. This was published in Circulation, which is showing the direct amount of TMAO in people's system, in their blood, comparing an omnivore diet versus a vegan or vegetarian diet, so plant-based versus animal-based. You see the plant-based has lower amounts of TMAO, that is the green bar, and then the animal-based diets had higher amounts of TMAO. Another study showed that high salt intake can alter fluid and some of the hormones that are regulating fluid balance, which change the gut microbiome unfavorably, so it becomes more pathogenic, and this in turn leads to inflammation and then cardiac remodeling in some patients that have hypertension and that are salt sensitive. So we're seeing here not only animal proteins in foods, but also salt, so other key minerals that we ingest that can alter the gut microbiome and lead to cardiac remodeling. And we know that the gut microbiome looks different, has different microbes that are in the composition in the large intestine. It looks different in heart failure patients than healthy patients. So we're looking at a diseased population versus a healthy population. And what I want to show at the bottom here in the orange, these are some of the outcomes that were found from a couple of these studies. And I just want to read, in heart failure microbiomes, there was an increased capability for lipopolysaccharide biosynthesis and TMA generation. Remember, TMA on the previous slide leads to TMAO, which can go to the circulation. And they also have a decreased capacity for butyrate production. Lipopolysaccharide is also a bad metabolite. It increases the risk of something called leaky gut or gut translocation of microbes. So that means when you have a leaky gut, these pathogenic microbes can literally cross from the gut into the blood and lead to a lot of chronic conditions and symptoms related to chronic diseases. Butyrate is a short-chain fatty acid that is produced from the fermentation of certain fibers and especially resistant starch. Butyrate is good. We want higher short-chain fatty acid production, and that's made by the microbes, beneficial microbes, feed off of fiber and resistant starch, and they produce in that fermentation and feeding process butyrate along with acetate and propionate. Those are the three main short-chain fatty acids that are produced. What they also found in heart failure patients have a reduced potential to produce butyrate. So we have higher TMA and TMAO plus high lipopolysaccharide, also known as LPS. Those are bad pro-inflammatory compounds, and the lower or less ability to produce short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate, which are beneficial to us in overall health. This was a study, and they looked at almost 1,500 individuals, looked at long-term dietary patterns and how they were associated with either pro or anti-inflammatory features of the gut microbiome. And here's some of the findings. Diets high in vegetables, legumes, grains, nut, and fish, so healthy foods, have a higher intake of plant over animal foods can potentially prevent intestinal inflammatory processes. Whole-based dietary patterns could increase the anti-inflammatory capacity of nutrients by a synergistic effect with the gut microbiome. High intake of animal foods, processed foods, alcohol, and sugar leads to a more pro-inflammatory or a really high inflammation type of environment that's produced by the gut microbes. Sources of omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids, like those found in fatty fish, and polyphenols, which are found in tea, berries, grapes, may be used to potentiate the amount of short-chain fatty acid producers. So these compounds derived from fish and really high phenolic dietary sources can increase the amount of short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate producers. Replacing animal protein by plant protein can reduce intestinal inflammatory processes by targeting these microbial pathways. Okay, this study also found that the certain taxa that were beneficial, which were related to beneficial intakes of, for example, bifidobacterium, is higher when individuals consume a high plant protein, carbohydrate, bread, and fruit diet, but it's reduced when we have animal protein, fat, fish in this case, savory snacks, red wine, and butter. So we have all of these beneficial microbes are primarily increased by plant-based foods. If you look at the majority, things like nuts, vegetables, cereals, legumes, fish is also one of those beneficial protein sources that can improve the gut microbe profile and make it less inflammatory. Then this study also found there are lots of pathogenic bacteria that are increased with things like animal proteins, fat, cheese, fast food, soft drinks, syrup, all of these foods that we know we shouldn't consume a lot of that are potentially detrimental to our health. So we see that there's a shift in increased pathogenic bacteria with these types of food intake. So how do patients with a chronic disease change their microbiome from pathogenic or pro-inflammatory to beneficial or anti-inflammatory? Well, we simply increase the amount of fiber, which is found in plant-based foods. Also resistant starches. Resistant starches increase the beneficial bacteria because they can be fermented by these microbes and they are high short-chain fatty acid producers. Okay, so we can see that with gut microbes that are beneficial from high fiber intake has the potential to reduce food intake, to increase energy expenditure, and then in the gut, these short-chain fatty acids improve the gut barrier, so we have a decreased leaky gut. We also have an increase in the release of gut peptides like GLP-1. So fiber and resistant starches are naturally going to increase GLP-1 and also decrease LPS, lipopolysaccharide, which is that pro-inflammatory metabolite that causes leaky gut. So then when we eat a lot of fiber, we have reduced metabolic endotoxemia, which means less toxins in the blood contributing to our metabolism. Okay, so the goal: plant-based foods, resistant starches, fiber. The Mediterranean diet can also be beneficial, but if you look at the top, it's exactly what we've been talking about. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, extra virgin olive oil is another component. It's actually high in polyphenols as well. And so if you consume these types of foods at every meal, that is resembling more of a Mediterranean dietary pattern, and that's going to beneficially impact your gut microbes. Eat at least 3 servings a week of beans, nuts, fatty fish. Limit to 1 serving a day your poultry, low-fat dairy, and eggs. And then you want to limit 1 serving per week. 1 serving per week. Red meat and sweets. The Mediterranean diet, also high in fiber, can benefit your overall health. If you want to know more about the different types of foods that have resistant starch and fiber and that are just overall healthy for you, you can watch some of my YouTube videos. I publish a lot of information on diet and nutrition and overall health. You can also go to my website, renutrin.co, where I publish a lot of blogs and additional information. All of my content is backed by science. I'm a big believer in taking what has been peer-reviewed and published in the scientific literature and not trying to exacerbate the findings, but just providing you with the facts. And if you want to know more about Renutrin, so I have developed a dual-acting prebiotic fiber that includes resistant starch plus a starch blocker. So it literally inhibits the enzyme that breaks down starches and some carbohydrates. So it improves gut health, but also reduces blood glucose or blood sugar. So if you want to know more, please scan this QR code. And I hope you find this video informative and educational. And please provide comments and I will answer them when I'm able. Thank you.